Hi. So, I told you about my having a chronic high level of lithium and then an acute level toxicity level uh, after getting dehydrated, working in the heat for a period of time. So, I'm going to talk about what symptoms I had and and what it was like going about my business on that weekend I did get to the festival. So, um, the symptoms I had, now remember, I had told you that in my previous videos that the level does not correlate to the symptoms. Some people can walk around with a high level and display little or no symptoms. Some people can have just a little bit too high and they're in a terrible state, which is kind of what my case was. So, it's it's serious. It's something you need to take seriously. You need to make sure you're not prescribed medications that interact with lithium, and to not get dehydrated, to not take too much. So, my first symptoms started before I left for the festival. Blurred vision. I didn't put this all together and think it was all related or it was a problem. But blurred vision, it was especially hard for me to see at night. Um, but I was trying to read and watch TV, and I have like trifocals. I have distance, intermediate, and reading. And so I'm like moving my head, trying to find, oh, my glass is dirty. I kept, my windshield's dirty. I kept thinking stuff like that. But I kept saying at night, I can't see. So, and it was difficult for me to read some things. Lethargy, that started right when I was leaving, when I was packing up. That's when that started settling in. Everything took 3 times as long because I was really slow at figuring things out, planning, doing. I'd pack a little, take a break, pack a little, take a break. Didn't notice that it was different. Shaky hands shaky hands. The shaky legs came later. Shaky hands was a problem for me to recognize because I do have essential tremor, which is a progressive tremor in my hands. So I thought they were just worsening. And as soon as my lithium level got settled out, my hands are super steady. So it was that chronic, mostly, clutter accumulation. I didn't notice this until I got home from the hospital. I looked in my bedroom and I had stacks of things. Rather than taking care of things that had problem solving, planning, just how I used to do it, and I would just put it in a pile, not recognizing that it was my brain's way of saying you you're cognitively impaired and you're unable to figure out stuff you've been doing for years, put it in a pile and get to it later. Fleeting anxiety. Just pretty much all day, on and off, anxious about nothing in particular. I was stressed, but not anxious. Need for help doing tasks and finding things. I was constantly, where is this? Where is that? Where is this? And it's right there in front of me. My brain couldn't connect. You can't find something. Look for it here or there. I would either ask someone to help me find it, have a tantrum, isolate. So I wasn't, on day-to-day living, I wasn't doing well. So that's how I left, where my symptoms were mainly cognitive. And there is a word called agnosia, when you don't recognize something for what it is because of your disorder. There are different kinds of agnosias. And the one I'm talking about is, I hope I say it right. Okay, it's spelled ANOSOGNOSIA. Anosognosia. I can't pronounce it. But it is a condition where your brain can't recognize one or more other health conditions you have. Extremely common with mental health conditions like schizophrenia and Alzheimer's. Can't be dangerous on its own, but people with it are much more likely to avoid or resist treatment for their health conditions. So I didn't recognize things as symptoms to that, not because I just didn't associate it, but because I was cognitively impaired and I was cognitively unable to decipher things. So I got to the festival grounds. I got sort of lost going from the office to the actual fairgrounds, but nothing major. I seemed to set up okay, a little slowly. Well, I got my tent up and everything. I'm in my costume. And I did transactions. I think I did okay with my transactions. I keep pausing because I have a tickle in my throat. So it was Saturday and Sunday, and then I was going to do the next weekend as well. So Saturday, I wanted to go, when it was over, I wanted to go get some ice to put in, more water to put in my cooler to be ready for Sunday. And so I knew there was a huge Quick Trip right by the fairgrounds. So I set my GPS, which I am dependent on, to Quick Trip, which was just down the road, but it didn't take me just down the road that I usually go. It took me somewhere else, and it was nighttime, and I couldn't see. And I ended up, I'm following instructions on my GPS, and I'm trying to get to any gas station at this point. I finally get to it. They don't have any more ice. So I decided to go to another gas station and picked it on my GPS. And I'm trying to get there. And I'm like, it's over there on the other side. I need to get over there. And I'm driving. I'm like, I can't see. Why is it so dark? I can't see. And then a policeman pulled up behind me and told me I was driving with my lights off. I was very upset because I was lost, and my GPS was taking me places that I'm not familiar with. This is more city-like than I'm used to. So luckily, I explained to him, they usually come on at night, but they don't anymore, and I don't know how to make them go back to coming on automatically. And he showed me the knob. I knew that. That is knowledge that was in my brain, but I was unable to access it. And so he showed that to me and let me go. Then, luckily I did have my service dog with me, so I probably would have freaked out even more if I were alone. And so I think it was on the way back I found what I was looking for, but at some point I was driving on the wrong side of this very busy road. There's like 4 lanes on each side, and it took me a while to figure that out. I was like, why are these people driving on my side of the road? And then I finally realized it. And so I was like trying to look for, while on the wrong side of the road, a way out, some way to turn or an exit. Why would an exit be going this way, though? So I'm like freaking out, crying. And I pulled over. And just sort of sat there crying. And this man came in a big truck. And he said, you're driving on the wrong side. And I'm like, yeah, I realize that, but I can't find a way to get turned around. So he was really nice. He blocked traffic with his truck so I could make a U-turn and go back to where I was going. And I finally got back, and I was in a state. I was exhausted. I was upset. I was confused. It was hot. I just pushed on for the next day, which I I do think it was a little more difficult for me to handle money, like how much change to give, things like that. But mostly I used cards, so that helped. Sunday seemed to be pretty uneventful. What we do is you arrive on Friday and get set up. And get up at 7 a.m. and make sure you're ready to go by 9 because they open at 10. And then it's over at 7. You go wherever you're going to go to sleep. If you can go home, you're lucky if you live nearby, but most people don't. So got up in the morning, did Sunday, and then Monday people pack up and leave and may or may not come for the next weekend. And I really struggled on breaking down my tent and packing my stuff. I was so lethargic and my heart was pounding and I was utterly exhausted. I was so exhausted. I had this little section where my 10 by 10 tent was, and I had some things that I still yet needed to pick up, trash or put in my car. And I got in my car and turned the AC on because it was so hot, and drove my car in circles around this stuff and picked up a few things and stopped and rested. Drove around it a little more. And there was this thing on my roof, a carrier, and it had these straps that go on the windows. And my mom said that she had noticed this changes starting when we were packing my car to leave, because she was trying to show me how this thing, cargo carrier thing that goes on your roof, sets up so I could do it, And I couldn't get the information she's telling me, and I couldn't get it. It just was not reaching me. And so I was like, I'll just figure it out when I get there, because I couldn't follow what she was telling me to do. Like you're supposed to put the strap here, these go here. And she's like, you should watch the YouTube video. And I tried and I couldn't make sense of it. So I just said, I'll figure it out. When I get there, I'll ask somebody when I get there. But as I was packing up, someone noticed that I was really struggling, and that was still sort of lingering there. I think they worked for the festival, and she came over and helped me. And I was so grateful for that. I was so lethargic and exhausted and hot and confused and not thinking soundly. So my ride home, 2 hours, was eventful. My GPS was taking me in directions to places I've been before in different ways, so I didn't know what was going on with that, so I didn't even know if I was going the right way or not. So I used both my Garmin and my phone to make sure they synced up, that they were going the same direction. But at one point, I was so panicked that I called my mom and asked her to stay on the phone with me and follow me as I made my way home and talk to me because I was panicked and I was exhausted. I got home, I went upstairs, laid down, and just sobbed and thought, how am I going to do this again next week? Well, I wasn't. I was going to be in the hospital. That is when I got home, that's when the what I call my secondary symptoms showed up, which were a decrease in appetite. You don't feel like eating anything and you don't feel hungry. So there's a little weight loss in there too if you're going a while with a high level. Nausea and vomiting. My mom kept trying to make me food to eat and drink, and I would take a bite and just vomit all over the place. Everything had this strange odor. At first, I was convinced that something had invaded our house, making everything smell funny. The dogs smelled funny, and my mom gave me a hug. And I'm like, it's on you too. What is this? The food smell. It would put musty with rancid, because lithium messes with the olfactory, and that's pretty much what makes you vomit at that stage. What I call fuzzy brain. It felt like there was a thick fog between me and other people, and everything seemed to have this dissociative fuzziness about it. Like I wasn't real, nothing was real. And when I was asked questions, my mom would ask me questions, I'd just stare at her blankly. And then finally, like after a long time, go, I don't know. Except not that animated. I knew by the time I went to the ER, I knew yes, no, I don't know. My first name, sometimes I knew my last name. I didn't know the date. I didn't know the day of the year. I knew who the president was now, but I didn't know any other ones. I didn't do so well on the three, repeat the 3 words that I told you. Those questions that they ask for mental status change. So that's what I mean by, and people are asking me questions or giving me instructions, and it's not getting to me. It's that lost in that thick fog. And I needed help. And my mom was trying, it was on the weekend, and my mom was trying to get a hold of my doctor, my psych doctor, and they suck. They said, please leave a message. You may not get a response for 24 to 48 hours. So, by then, my legs were shaking and my hands were shaking. and I couldn't walk without, I was using a cane. I was going up and down the stairs on my butt because I was going to fall. My muscles were just like spasming. It was just insane. And I discovered that they would come in the hospital and check my reflexes. And the hyper, you have, I don't know the term, your reflexes are a little too much. So I think that's what the sort of spasms were like while I was trying to move and walk. I think it exacerbated my normal tremor, essential tremor that I have. Delirium. Um, it was like waking dreams. I had dreams, but I was awake. They weren't delusions and they weren't hallucinations. But, like a fever delirium. I tell you about my balance and coordination. In fact, when I was in the hospital the first 2 days, I had to use a walker. It was really embarrassing. I now own a walker and a cane. I don't need it, but keep it just in case. And increased heart rates, I noticed. And so I'm having these symptoms and I'm unable to express myself. What I wanted to express was I understood that this was psychiatric, but that I needed like psychiatric related to meds or something, but it was a medical thing and I needed to be seen by a doctor. I thought I was dying because I was just getting worse and worse and more distant and distant. I did run into someone in a group who had a very high level after being prescribed non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, a lot higher than mine. She ended up in the ICU on dialysis because if it does get that high, they have to dialyze some of it if they can out of your blood. And she was in a coma, and I felt like I was getting further and further away, like that fog was getting thicker and thicker, and then I had this moment where, excuse me, I had this moment of clarity somehow, and I got up, I stood up, and I said, I gotta go. I'm telling my mom, I have to go. And she's like, and I just start walking towards the door, and she's like, go where, go where? I'm like, we need to talk to my psych doctor. But I need help now. I need to go. She's like, wait. Do you want me to take you to the emergency room? Yes, I said, yes. And then I waddled my way out to the car and just sat and waited because I was ready. This was my last chance, kind of thing. And she's like, wait, we got to get some stuff. And she's dragging around this giant box where I keep my medications in. And we go there, and they're trying to ask me what's wrong. And I'm like, it's fuzzy. That's all I could say. I'm fuzzy. Things didn't seem real. it was terrifying because I wonder and I worry, would I have been able to help myself if I didn't have someone else there? I mean, I guess I would have had to call. Would I have been able to understand that I couldn't drive? To go to the hospital, I'd have to call an ambulance, or what would I tell them if I'm not with it? Oh, you have to come, I'm fuzzy. So, they kept just saying it was a little bit high. It's a little bit high. And it was a little bit high, but my symptoms were pretty extreme. So you can't go by what the experience of what anybody else has had. While I was in the hospital, I went to first thing went to our local ER, which is a rural hospital, and they don't have things that I needed, so I had to go to take an ambulance ride 2 hours to a different hospital, and I was waiting to get discharged. I was anxious to get discharged on my 4th day, but I had to wait until their psychiatrist at that hospital talked to me. And these hospitals are all in a chain, so they can access information from all of the hospitals in that chain. And she informed me that I had in 2022, in the beginning, I had a lithium level that was high. And then about 3 to 4 months after that, I had another one that was a little higher. And then no more after that. Now, I have had people make comments that I should have been on top of that, get my levels done. If the doctor's not telling you to go get labs done, you should have stepped up and said something to get your labs done. Well, if your level is high and it's affecting your cognitive abilities, perhaps I was unable to understand that I hadn't had a lithium level drawn in a while. I did not know. I mean, if they told me, I didn't remember that I had high levels 2 years ago. But if they had, they didn't make any changes. So it just gradually went up and up and up, but nobody knew because nobody was checking the lithium labs. And I'd been walking around for 2 years with a high level. So who knows what issues I'd been having was related to that, and I thought it was something else. And I am fairly angry at my psychiatric team. I do think they dropped the ball. I think that if my dose had been decreased when it was high the first time, I could have saved myself from this very expensive hospital stay. I've gotten the ER bill. I haven't gotten the hospital bill or the ambulance bill. I applied for financial assistance, but I still have no idea how much I'm going to owe. But you can bet your bottom dollar that I now keep track. I have them all written down in my medical information booklet to keep track. And my primary physician has really stepped up and ordered more lithium levels because my psych team didn't get me an appointment with the psychiatrist until January 2nd. And I think my primary physician is a little disgusted with my psychiatric team right now. I know I am. It was, to say the least, it was absolutely terrifying. And it's going to be monetarily terrifying. I'm selling stuff on eBay and Swapshop and Etsy, trying to earn money. Which I don't like. Anyway, I really think this whole thing could have been avoided. There is something I would like to point out, that if someone did not suspect lithium toxicity, see, at the little hospital, they suspected lithium toxicity, but they didn't know how much because they don't have the ability to test your lithium level at that hospital. So that's why I had to go to a different hospital, so they could test it to see what it was and then treat it. So if someone hadn't known or been able to have the information, I say you have a high level and you're wandering the street and you're confused, it can easily be mistaken for depression or dementia. So wear your medical alert bracelets, necklaces, whatever. And also this is my new best friend to keep me hydrated. I am sick and tired of fluids. On an up note, we are getting a puppy tomorrow. This puppy is to take the place of my current service dog, who is going to be retiring. So I'm excited, but I'm also very anxious because I've had puppies before and they really mess with your sleep schedule. So, but my mom's here too, so she can help. Yeah, so I'm gonna be busy to start training like day one. I'm going to be busy doing that, trying to do dog training, anything to make money. That's my, yeah, so, that's what happened. I feel like I'm leaving some things out because I don't remember much. Oh, while I was in the hospital, I couldn't do anything. I was so bored because, get this, I was so cognitively messed up. I didn't know how to work my phone. All I could do is, I saw my mom's name that she had called, and I just pressed that and it'll call her. I couldn't text anybody. I couldn't get on the internet. I couldn't do anything because I didn't know how to work it. And that in my tablet too. And that slowly came back to me as I was in the hospital. So what happens if you're alone and you're like staring at your phone, and in your head you're like, I know it's in there. It's in there, but why can't I get it to call the doctor? So I think the scariest part was driving on the wrong side of the road. That is just screaming something's wrong. So that's what happened to me. And I will be making a video showing you my new puppy. She doesn't have a name yet. We have a short list, and we're just going to see what she's like the most. And I think we're leaning towards Iola Pearl, because that was my great-grandmother. Anyway, so then I will talk to you later.